Good day, everyone. I am just so excited about how the Lord is just moving by His Spirit throughout this earth. And I just want to share a few words with you today. This morning when I woke up after praying, I could hear the Lord saying, and I'm just going to give you what He gave me, that we are more committed to a job than we are committed to Him. So that's what we're talking about today. You are more committed to your job than to God. And I heard one pastor say, quit your job and go to work. Now, please, don't anyone go and quit their job and turn in their resignation. That's not what he's saying. But we're jobbing. After your 9 to 5, even as Pastor Dr. Miles Monroe said, your real work is after your 9 to 5 job or whatever time you go to work. Okay, so the real work is after you have gone to your job. We exhaust ourselves over a job. Think about it. People will go to work. What's the saying for mail carriers? Rain, sleet, or snow. You know, they're delivering the mail. And it's amazing how some people, if it's raining, we're going to work. But when we're able to go to church, if it was raining, some people choose not to go to church. Or because they've worked all week, they feel entitled to sleep in on Sundays. So this is just an example of how people are more committed to a job than they are to God. And when I say that, it's not so much about going to church, but you still should not forsake the assembling of yourselves when you're able to, when the doors of the church are open. But the thing is that we will exhaust ourselves over our agendas or for things that we are passionate about. We don't include God in our plans a lot of times. So I just want to share a few scriptures today, and hopefully it will cause you to reevaluate your life, and especially during the time of a pandemic. People have time. Excuse me, I keep yawning. Sorry about that. It's a downtime. Sometimes God allows things to happen. But while this is going on, I'm not saying, God put the pandemic on us. I'm not saying any of that. But anything we go through in life, we should learn from it. The pandemic didn't take God by surprise. It may have taken us by surprise, as we were not prepared. And I do believe warnings were there. Just like, the Bible talks about, it's the same thing in the days of Noah. People will be doing the same thing that they did in the times of Noah. Noah said, he was building the ark, and people were like, well, what are you building the ark for? There's no rain. It never rains that much. And a lot of times we are warned about things, but because something has never happened or we have never experienced that, we think it's not going to happen. But even during the time of Joseph, God told him, excuse me, I'm so sorry, I keep yawning. It's late in the evening, I guess. I'm sorry. But anyway, with Joseph, he says you're going to have 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. During those 7 years, prepare, make preparations, store away. And I believe God has spoken some things through us, but we are so caught up in our own agenda that we miss it, or we don't take heed to the warnings of God, or we we rationalize, we're like, well, it never happened that way. God doesn't do things our way. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So back to the topic at hand, which what I received, you are more committed to your job than to God. Now, for those of you who are not children of God, because everybody's not a child of God, even though people say that all of the time, not everyone is his child, okay? But for those of you who claim to be children of God, then why are you more committed to your job than you are to the things of God, to the work of God, the work for the kingdom? Because only what we do for Christ is going to last. I want to take you to Proverbs, and I'm going to read from the 16th chapter. Excuse me, I am so sorry. So Proverbs chapter 16. Let me go back to there, and I'm going to read verse 3 and verse 9. So it says, commit your works unto the Lord, and your thoughts shall be established. By mercy and truth, verse 9, a man's heart devises his way, but the Lord directed his steps. So although we make our plans and we commit our works unto the Lord, our thoughts shall be established. We can make our plans, but that doesn't mean the plans will always go as the way we planned it. Think about it. The pandemic wasn't nobody's plan. And see, you hear people say all the time, well, tomorrow we're going to do this, or we'll be right back here next week. No, I say if it's God's will, or God spare my life, we just assume, next year we're going to do this. Who says we're going to be here next year? Who says we're going to be here next week? All I'm saying is, in everything we need to consider God. I love Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all of thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. So we have to trust him for everything. Lean not unto our own understanding, because a lot of this was going on. We don't understand it all. But again, this did not take God by surprise. This pandemic, I'm sure, was in nobody's plans. Who would have known we would be where we are today? And it's still not over, even though people think this is not real. It's a hoax. No, this is real. So trust in God with all of your heart. If we trust in him with all of our heart and lean not unto our own understanding, trust in him and he will give you the peace that you need. I love Psalms 27 and 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Isaiah 26 and 3. He will keep you in perfect peace when you trust him. Okay? So again, the pandemic, I'm sure, was in nobody's plans. It messed up everybody's economics. And I just love that my life does not consist of the things that I have. Our life does not, it doesn't consist of what we possess. That's not what life is all about. You have to leave all of this here. So don't let your job be your God. And I heard, I think it was Dr. Washington. I listened to one of her videos today, and she said it so, and I've been saying this in my class. I teach a consumer tips and finance class at my church, and I've been saying this. I love that Dr. Lynn came and just reaffirmed everything that I've been telling people for the past year and a half, even more years before this class. God never created us just to work a job and pay bills. We've been taught just to go and get a degree, get a job. Those people don't care anything about you. You work a job for 30 years and you leave there with what? And that's how we live our lives. Instead of being committed to God for 30 years, we'll commit ourselves to a job for 30 years. Just think if you exhaust yourself or put in that same passion or put in the same energy for the things of God that you do for your job. Just think how great your life will be, and you're storing all of your treasures in heaven. Your rewards after you leave here is what really counts. But we will exhaust ourselves. We will go into debt. We will lose sleep. We will do whatever we can to become successful as the world sees it. But you will commit 30 years of your life to a job. And then after you work those 30 years and retire, you look back and say, you look at your life and really see, what have I accomplished? Okay, you may have, gotten fancy cars, a nice home, dressed nice. All that means nothing to God. But we are so wrapped up into our jobs, being committed to those jobs, and even, parents, they will, especially men, years ago, men that's really thriving for success, to be at the top of the ladder, you sacrifice time with your children. You sacrifice raising your child. You give all of that up for worldly possessions. You give all of that up for a job. Okay, so you make it to the top of the ladder. You become the CEO or the operator, whatever the top titles are. Who cares about that? Your child cares nothing about that. Because what they're saying is, I don't have time with my mom. I don't have time with my dad because my mom or dad was so busy chasing their careers, chasing to become the head CEO or the president or the director or whatever in their company. And you can never get that time back with your child. You can never get that time back with God. And that's why I say in your youth, that's when he wants you to pursue him. But we spend so much time in our youth chasing after things for us without realizing that we're really, what does it, as the word says, what good does it man to gain the whole world? What does it profit you? You gain the world and lose your soul. But maybe you haven't lost your soul. Maybe you're in Christ, but you have let that take the priority of your walk with God, of what God has called you to do, because you chose your own plans. You exalted your plans above God. So, again, when God just spoke that to me, I'm like, oh my God, that is so true. We spend all this time committed to a job. And back when I was coming up and you get a job, you expect to retire from that job. Those days are long gone. But people are so committed to a job, and guess what? Those jobs will quit or shut down, leave you actually like with your pants down, so to speak. You go to work one day and the gates are locked. No one gave you a warning that the company was shutting down. The company filed bankruptcy, or you get a pink slip. But you commit yourself to that job, even more to your family. You're running after, you're putting in that overtime. And guess what? You're just going to pay it in taxes anyway. But people realize, put God ahead of your job. God has to be the priority. But we are so committed to these jobs. People cry over losing a job. You don't cry over having a dry spell in your life with God. That's more important. Your job, my job. Oh, I have to go to my job. You put that job above everything. And this is not for everybody, but those of you who are doing that or have done it, you know who you are. But if you're doing that now, you're tiring yourself for a job, and then a lot of times you don't even like the job that you're going to. But because it's putting money on in your pocket, food on the table, I understand. But why would you exhaust yourself for something when God has given you a better way of life? Seek God's direction for your life. Thank God for the job, but don't make the job your God. That's all I'm saying. And I want to close out with this about the parable of the Great Supper. I want you all to read Luke chapter 14. Whenever you get a chance, I encourage you to read. Of course, you don't have to. I can't make anyone do anything that they don't want to do, but I'm encouraging you to get into your word. But this is just, to me, the same thing when it comes to God. We give excuses. Oh, God, I'm too tired. I worked all this week. I can't get up and go to church. I was raised Catholic, and I remember we would go out, we would go to church because we had mass on Saturdays. And if we knew we were going out Saturday night, we would go to church on Saturdays. So it's like, oh, we did our deed. We went to church because we knew we wanted to sleep in on Sundays. It's hypocritical, but that's what we did. I've gone to church. I've done my good deed. That's what we say. That has nothing to do with God. You think God is pleased with that because you went to church? Even the devil goes to church. We have to change our mindset. Our mind has to be renewed. We need to rethink this whole religion thing because people are so religious. They're religious but have no relationship. It has nothing to do with God. You can go to church all you want. The devil does not mind. Again, I keep saying that. The devil doesn't mind you going to church, but it's when you get into your word, when you're spending time with God, that's what he doesn't want. You can go to church because a lot of us, we've done church all of our lives. We're churched. Oh, we're good at being church. We know the game. We know how to act. We know what to say. That has nothing to do with God. That has nothing. It's religion. That's all we have. Religion. And it's not even good religion. Okay? So Luke chapter 14. Verse 15. It says, and one of them that sat at meat with him heard these things. He said unto him, blessed is he that shall eat bread in the kingdom of God. Then said he unto him, a certain man made a great supper and bade many, and sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, come, for all things are now ready. And they all with one consent began to make excuse. The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray you have me excused. And I'm not going to read all through that, but I encourage you to finish reading it. But I read it just to say this. That's what we do. We give God excuses. God, I worked hard all this week. I'm going to sleep in this Sunday. It's raining, God. I'm going to sleep in. And I used to tell a friend of mine all of the time, you let your children stay in on Sunday and not go to, because they went to school all week. They go to school when it's raining. You mean you're going to let them bypass going to church because they went to school all week? Wow, it's so sad how we do God. We give all our time to things that pleases us, that's good for us, but when it comes to God, we want to give him the leftovers. Isn't that the same thing as the Cain spirit? Cain gave God anything, all kind of offering, and then he wanted to get mad at God because he favored, and I want to make sure that I did not confuse the brothers, but Cain killed Abel. He was jealous. And God said, if you do what's right, then I'm going to bless you just like I bless him. He wants to give God anything, any kind of offering. And it's the same thing we're doing with our lives. When we give God any kind of offering, we give him second best. We tired ourselves out. And when it's time to give God our all, we don't want to give him our best. Okay? And that is, I'm just checking to make sure. Because what Abel did, Abel brought the firstlings of his flock. He gave God his best. And that's all I'm saying here. When it even comes to your job, stop giving God what's left after you've given your job everything, and then you want to give God the leftovers. And then you're not even giving him the tithe from your income. Come on. Stop being more committed to your job than you are to God. And that's all I want to share in love. I'm not condemning anybody, but listen, we've got to do better. We've got to get our act together. God must be the priority. Stop being more committed to your job than you are to God. I love you guys.